He did not like Bibi Netanyahu, and he said that to me many times, and he said it to people around him many times. He felt that Bibi Netanyahu was a very destructive force.
By going nuts in your crackdowns on mild pushback on anything related to Israel. Now you take it.
I'm so glad you brought this up, and I would second that. Megan, I think I have a bulletproof resume showing my defense of Israel, both on campus, on social media.
This is the essence of Charlie. This is the essence of a free country. It's exactly what Charlie stood for.
Charlie Kirk, an anti-Semite, and quote, dangerous. Charlie Kirk, an anti-Semite. Yeah. He was not an anti-Semite. He was the opposite, and he was not dangerous. He was a great lover of people and a purveyor of peace.
Now, this video has nothing to do with the conspiracies surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination, but rather the battle on social media surrounding Charlie Kirk's legacy and a lot of dishonest actors, because there is enough clips and evidence to prove what I'm about to show you. And by the time you're finished watching this video, I strive to be the best video you've seen on the topic, and I don't think you'll regret watching this in its entirety. So was Charlie Kirk changing his views? I'll be the first to admit Charlie Kirk was not exactly like me, and I'll never pretend that he was, because it's not true and it's not fair. But a lot of pro-Israel sycophants are trying to act like there was no evidence that Charlie Kirk was not exactly like them, and everybody's making it up. And a lot of the people lying about that are actually some of the ones that were ticked off at Charlie Kirk months ago for platforming Tucker Carlson and dissenting from the hive mind of a lot of the pro-Israel crowd.
And I think the real answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? How does a guy go from being a math teacher at the Dalton School in the late 70s with no college degree to having multiple airplanes, a private island, and the largest residential house in Manhattan? Where did all the money come from? And no one has ever gotten to the bottom of that because no one has ever tried. And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about saying that. There's nothing even anti-Israel about saying that.
Here's Charlie Kirk in his own words talking to Megyn Kelly in August, explaining his frustration of being called an anti-Semite.
The way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite.
An enemy.
When the hostile reaction is that now Megan and Charlie are enemies.
Right.
Boy, I'll tell you, like, you're not gonna, I won't say lose, but you will weaken and just basically deflate two of your strongest advocates if that continues.
And getting text calling Megyn Kelly a Hamas helper, essentially.
I got text about you, Megan, saying, why is Megan like doing the bidding of Hamas? I was like, what are you talking about? Megan's the best. Like, what? Like, she's amazing. And I said, why are you texting me about Megan?
Now, I'll play some clips from that interview later in this live stream as well, but if you want to watch the full 17 minutes, on YouTube, look up Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk push back against Israel supporters demanding their 100% Israel support. Don't take my word for it. Don't take people's word disagreeing with me. Watch the video for yourself. It's self-explanatory.
What are you doing? Like, why are you, what am I doing? I'm sorry. Like, let's just take a step back here. Like, I'm an American citizen. Yes, I want Israel to win. Yes, I'm a Christian. But like some of the mess, and you've seen how I've been treated, Megan, by some, not all, by some.
No, it's very irritating.
It's
been so unfair. They were coming after you after Turning Point for, among other things, that you had Dave Smith there. Dave Smith is allowed to criticize Israel. You had both sides. The Israeli side was overrepresented.
Though. No, you're not allowed to. It's even worse than that. Again, I just want to repeat for the 5th time. I love Israel. I want Israel to win. But my moral character is now being put into question, Megan. Not my decisions. Not like, hey, are you doing this? Is it smart or is it dumb? But no, I am a bad person if I do this.
And also, with respect to, you and I speculated about this at the Turning Point event, whether the possibility of Jeffrey Epstein possibly being a Mossad agent or asset or affiliated with, that's been turned around on me too, to you must be anti-Semitic. What the hell? That's such bullshit. The same people who say you can criticize Israel, that's fine. We won't call you anti-Semitic if you criticize Israel. Now turn around immediately and say you're anti-Semitic for even raising that.
We're going to just stamp out everything type of practice, but it goes to the point where if, for example, if I have less ability sometimes online to criticize the Israeli government without backlash than actual Israelis do. And that's really, really weird, isn't it, Megan? That's not so right.
Wrong-headed.
After Charlie Kirk's death, the New York Post ran this headline: Charlie Kirk and Rabbi Pal talked hours before his death. He was in a combative mood. According to this article, Charlie Kirk was in high spirits and in a combative mood just before kicking off his America Comeback tour at Utah Valley, said a rabbi friend who spoke to him for an hour the night before his death. Rabbi Pesach Walicki, 55, an American-born cleric who lives in Israel, met Kirk via Zoom on Tuesday night. He was excited to get back out on the campus tour, said Walicki, who said he often spoke to Kirk before public appearances to advise him on how to defend Israel effectively. Here's a video of that rabbi explaining what he'd talk about with Charlie Kirk.
He annoyed people in the Jewish community over the last few months with some of the criticisms he had for Israel. And I argued, I don't know if you saw the piece I wrote in the Jerusalem Post a couple of months ago when he was being attacked after Tucker Carlson spoke at SAS, and people were calling him an anti-Semite. And I know Charlie, and here he's, little do they know, half the time he's on college campuses, all he's doing is hasbara and defending Israel. And he doesn't even want to be. He doesn't even know the issues that well, but he's forced to. But he dutifully, with a smile on his face, defends Israel left and right. We all saw what he did in England. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
At the debate. And passionately defending Israel. And that's not even what he wants to be doing. And now he's getting criticized as an anti-Semite. So I wrote that piece in the Jerusalem Post basically saying, listen, everybody, stop with the purity tests for every single view that he has to line up with, I don't know, Bibi's cabinet decisions. Relax. Okay, this is our greatest ally. Yes, he has questions. Yes, he's influenced by the other side as well. Good, I'm talking to him.
Notice he said Charlie didn't even want to be doing that, but he was forced to, and he did it anyway.
Little do they know, half the time he's on college campuses, all he's doing is hasbara and defending Israel, and he doesn't even want to be. He doesn't even know the issues that well, but he's forced to.
Why did Charlie Kirk have to say things he didn't want to say? It's a little strange, but there's even more proof that Charlie Kirk was not exactly like everybody on the pro-Israel side. Once again, he wasn't just like me either, but I'm not claiming he was. So many people online don't seem to have that honesty and humility. Here's TPUSA spokesperson Andrew Colvert, who came out and also said that Charlie Kirk was frustrated that he was being smeared as an anti-Semite and he was losing donors over it.
Charlie's position on Israel was very clear. I like them more than I like Hamas. I just wish I was free to criticize Israel and not be labeled an anti-Semite, because I can criticize my own government and not be called anti-American.
Right.
But why do I have more freedom to do, that and not criticize, a foreign government? And he was really upset that there was this sort of clampdown on the freedom of expression, the freedom of ideas, free speech when it came to a foreign government. And I will say this, he felt like he had earned the right as a friend of the Jewish people over the years and all of the things that he had done. He felt like his bona fides in that respect were unassailable and that he should have the freedom to say, hey, it's time to end the war. Hey, it's time to stop the killing. But, with Tucker, for example, we took some pushback. We lost some donors.
Which is what Tucker Carlson and many others have said.
He was one of the only people, truly one of the only people to go to the president whom he loved. He loved Donald Trump, personally as well. And I think the president really loved him in a real way. But he was one of the only people to go to the Oval Office and say, sir, I totally understand and think Iran's really bad, but a war with Iran is not, is something that could really hurt our country. That was an unpopular position. He didn't need to express it. Oh, of course. And he did it again. He didn't have some weird agenda. He wasn't mad at anybody. He was for his country, and he was for doing the right and wise and difficult thing. And he said that. He went to the Oval Office to say that. He took massive, massive abuse from his own donors, which is also something that you don't see people. And he loved his donors. It wasn't a hostile thing, but they had a different view. A lot of them, not all, but a lot.
And they expressed it to him in a very intense way. I know because he showed me. And he said, look, I understand your perspective. This is my perspective, and we're going to do what we think is the right thing, the wise thing.
So despite all of that proof, many try to pretend that that's not the reality. Do you want to see how dishonest some people on the pro-Israel side will be in order to deny reality? Listen to what Tucker Carlson says here.
The American Jewish Committee called in a statement Charlie Kirk an anti-Semite and, quote, dangerous. Charlie Kirk, an anti-Semite. He was not an anti-Semite. He was the opposite, and he was not dangerous. He was a great lover of people and a purveyor of peace. He was the opposite, and he was very stung by that. Those of us who've been called names for a long time are a little bit harder to offend. Charlie was deeply offended by that and expressed some of those feelings on Megyn Kelly's show and in other places. But that did not let up. The reason I'm telling this story is because he called me and then came to see me at my house about this topic. And I said to him every single time, look, I've got my own way to communicate my views. This is actually not the most important issue to me. There are lots of things I can talk about. I don't need to come to Turning Point. I can take a year off, no problem. I hated seeing how much he was suffering, the hassle he was getting from people, and I was being attacked too. By the way, it was a huge effort. I wasn't fully aware of it, actually, because I don't go online that much.
Now look at this incredibly sneaky and dishonest response from the senior editor at Breitbart, Joel Pollack. He said, I'm sorry, I've had it with the BS. Tucker Carlson, the American Jewish community, did not label Charlie Kirk an anti-Semite for criticizing Israel. This is a completely exaggerated claim made to cast Tucker as a victim. I love Megyn Kelly, but it's not as simple as wrap it up. So Joel Pollack falsely quoted Tucker Carlson and acted like he was talking about the American Jewish community being extremely broad. It's not what Tucker Carlson said. He said the American Jewish Committee.
The American Jewish Committee. The American Jewish Committee, the American Jewish Committee,
which is an actual group, which their tweet is up that says, Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly floated the baseless conspiracy theory that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent and admitted they had no evidence. That doesn't matter because what people will remember is the lie. This isn't just irresponsible, it's a textbook example of how right-wing anti-Semitism spreads, through conspiracy theories dressed up as innocent speculation. They gave oxygen to an age-old trope of Jewish control, and in today's climate, that's not just offensive. It's dangerous. So why is Joel Pollack acting like Tucker didn't talk about this specific group? It's very bizarre for someone that's supposed to be a journalist. And while they call it an age-old anti-Semitic trope about control, here is allegedly a Mossad agent on 60 Minutes saying that the world is essentially a stage and they are the scriptwriters when talking about the Hezbollah pager explosion.
We have an incredible array of possibilities of creating foreign companies that have no way being traced back to Israel, shell companies over shell companies who affect the supply chain to our favor. We create a pretend world. We are a global production company. We write the screenplay. We're the directors. We're the producers. We're the main actors. The world is our stage.
You have organizations calling it an anti-Semitic trope, while other groups go on television and say, no, we do have control over some things, while a senior editor at Breitbart falsely quotes Tucker Carlson to act like he's talking about just everybody, when in reality he's talking about a specific group in which Tucker was right about. Crazy. But let's get back to the main point of the video. Mark Levin said, it appears the Qatari bought media are working overtime to exploit the horrific murder of our friend Charlie Kirk. It's beyond grotesque. Charlie was a patriot's patriot, loving and faithful Christian, loyal friend, and happy soul. We, the people, will defend his legacy. Listen to his actual words, not the poison spewed by grifters. I agree, Mark. Let's listen to his actual words, like earlier this year when he opposed a bill that you got upset at him over. Charlie Kirk tweeted, tomorrow the House will vote for H.R. 867, a bill that will criminalize private boycotts of Israel. Fines up to $1 million and prison time up to 20 years. Bills like this only create more anti-Semitism and play into growing narratives that Israel is running the U.S. government. In America, you are allowed to hold differing views. You're allowed to disagree and protest. We've allowed far too many people who hate America move here from abroad, but the right to speak freely is the birthright of all Americans. This bill should not pass. Any Republican that votes for this bill will expose themselves. We will be watching very closely. Mark Levin responded. He said, you don't know what you're talking about, Charlie. The bill merely extends the Anti-Boycott Act of 2018 signed by President Trump to international organizations. What causes anti-Semitism is anti-Semites, bigots, Jew haters. They don't need excuses as you state here. your post is absurd. So Charlie Kirk and Mark Levin had a very different way of looking at anti-Semitism. Charlie believed that calling everybody an anti-Semite was not a good strategy. He didn't think that foreign aid and some of these wars and the legislation that politicians were passing were going to help. He said it would only make it worse. And Mark Levin said he doesn't know what he's talking about. Charlie even did a focus group where he talked to people in his organization about how ridiculous some of the pro-Israel sycophants were getting, and it was turning so much of the youth away.
How many of you guys think when a lawmaker, and a man I respect like Ted Cruz, uses the Bible to justify aid to Israel, doesn't even know the verse, do you guys think that's like not the best way to approach this? Raise your hand. Okay.
I think Ted Cruz used Genesis 12:3. I think a lot of people see that as off-putting when you look at the New Testament.
Why?
Because I think a lot of people, they look especially at the writings of Paul, where he talks about how the new flesh is not the same as the people in the Old Covenant. The new flesh is everybody, is everyone's included.
Talking about Romans 9.
Yes, 9:6, yeah.
Are you Catholic?
Converting Catholic from Judaism.
I can tell.
This is my next
Oh,
slide.
from Judaism?
Yes.
Oh, wow. So you're ethnically Jewish.
Ethnically Jewish, yes.
And you have concerns about AIPAC.
Yes, I do.
I'm told that by some people that if I criticize AIPAC, I'm anti-Semitic.
I think it's ridiculous, yeah. I feel like it's great to have a concern for your country.
Do you think that that AIPAC represents, again, I'm not saying I believe this, but I think this is what you're saying, that it represents a kind of cutting in line of prioritization away from the American people?
Yes.
Would you guys say that's a fair summary? 100%. Meaning that, like, okay, we vote, we're citizens, but a separate group gets higher priority because of whatever reasons. So, like, let me ask a question. If we were to remove, like, if people said what Tucker said is anti-Semitic, I don't hold that view. But it's like a lot of people on Twitter are, like, calling us out and, like, whatever. That's not going to happen. But if we were to cancel Tucker, would anti-Semitism increase or decrease?
I think increase, because that means any supporter of Tucker Carlson's statement therefore makes them anti-Semites.
Association.
So once again, Mark doesn't have to agree with Charlie on everything, neither do I, but I'm not pretending to rewrite Charlie's legacy. Charlie was not exactly like Mark, and if you want to look in his own words, Charlie was Charlie.
And so now we're back to the old blood libel. The old blood libel, because it comes up. Like Carlson. I don't know where there's Jew hatred from the Marxists, the Islamists, the neo-Nazis, the grifters. I don't know where they're pulling us and pushing us.
Mark also got upset with Charlie for warning against the war with Iran. In June, Mark said, "The Romans and Persians are gone, Charlie. The Jews are still here. How do you explain that? And Israel has defeated the Iranian military. Did it in 2 days. Come back home, Charlie. Reject the kooks, my friend." So if anybody needs proof that Charlie was shifting, come back home, Charlie should explain that Charlie left. Where did he leave? Just like a lot of black conservatives talk about how crazy the left gets if you're not accepting black talking points and liberal talking points, it's similar to the pro-Israel crowd. Yes, Charlie Kirk was pro-Israel, and I'll never pretend like he wasn't. But he wasn't exactly like all these other people. He understood that they were losing the youth. He didn't want war with Iran. He didn't support the anti-Semitism bills that they were passing. And people like Mark Levin disagreed with him at every one of those turns. And this is something that deeply frustrates me, because regardless of who the person was or what their foreign policy was, if Charlie Kirk wanted them to speak at his event later this year, I would want them booked. Turning point should be Charlie's vision. It's a fact that Charlie was standing by Tucker Carlson, was getting called an anti-Semite for it, and refused to bow down. There's literal proof of Charlie in the last few months standing by Tucker Carlson. He did not want to cancel him.
So, like, let me ask a question. If we were to remove, like, if people said what Tucker said is anti-Semitic, I don't hold that view. But it's like a lot of people on Twitter are, like, calling us out and, like, whatever. That's not going to happen. But if we were to cancel Tucker, would anti-Semitism increase or decrease? That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. But I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. Wait a second. What do you mean? What does "with us" mean exactly? Right? I'm an American, okay? Like, I represent this country, and I don't even understand that paradigm. But Megan, I think you would agree with this. I want to make sure we really zero in on this. Personality types like you, myself, and Tucker, the more that you guys privately and publicly call our character into question, which is not isolated, right? Megan, it would be one thing if
That's
it was
right.
one text or two texts. It is dozens of texts.
Yes.
Then we start to say, hold the boat here.
Yet recently, Mark Levin tweeted, Carlson's bigoted poison. TPUSA must back away from him and his ilk. I just think it's super evil to try to change Charlie Kirk's vision right now. If Mark Levin or even Netanyahu himself was booked to speak at Turning Point in December and Charlie Kirk wanted them there, I wouldn't want to change it. It's not my organization, it was Charlie's. And after his assassination, I think we should keep the speakers he wanted. We all know that Charlie wanted to stand by Tucker Carlson, yet now that he's dead, Mark Levin is putting pressure on the organization to go against Charlie's wishes because he has a running beef with Tucker Carlson. I find it extremely unethical and vile. Let me know what you think in the comments.
Do you think there's enough of an effort to push back? I find that conservative groups and conservative organizations that have these weekend events and these seminars, whether they're for young people or think tanks or that sort of thing, they sort of sprinkle these events with these kooks. They sprinkle these events with these American haters who claim to be American firsters and are fake MAGA and even stab the president in the back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an attempt by some of these organizations to, quote unquote, maintain the big tent. But the reality is that, as many have said, the problem with a big tent is that you may end up with many, many clowns inside.
Now, this next part should be pretty crystal clear about how dishonest and ridiculous these people are. David Petalicchio has been going off recently, saying that Megyn Kelly's reputation is directly in the trash, saying these people are demonic when Marjorie Taylor Greene said that Charlie texted her to invite her to speak at AmFest and to talk and debate about AIPAC. So I guess it's just demonic that Marjorie Taylor Greene shares a text message that Charlie literally wanted her to debate over AIPAC. He also tweeted, platforming Tucker right now is beyond despicable. JD Vance is an idiot, even though, like we said, Charlie wanted to platform Tucker Carlson. And then David Petalicchio said the woke right is demonic. The woke right is what a lot of Zionists call people that talk about or criticize the American relationship with Israel. They've created this term and they all say it in unison, thinking it's going to trick people. So now that you see that after Charlie was assassinated, he said the woke right is demonic. Is this guy the gatekeeper of Charlie Kirk's legacy? Well, when Charlie was alive, he tweeted, just to finish pissing everyone off today, Charlie Kirk will also likely become woke right too. So if you're connecting the dots, if he believed that Charlie Kirk would likely become woke right, and he calls the woke right demonic, then he believes that Charlie was eventually going to be demonic too. So once again, Charlie wasn't just like me, but why are people that hated the direction that Charlie Kirk was going trying to gatekeep his legacy and act like it wasn't happening? All you have to do is go to their Twitter pages from a few months ago to see that something was changing, because they were all freaking out at Charlie Kirk. A couple weeks before Charlie Kirk passed, Seth Dillon, the CEO of the Babylon Bee, tweeted, Tucker is cultivating confusion. Everything you've been told is a lie, including what you learned from Hitler, in parentheses, and despair. America is failing you. Feudalism would be better, to radicalize young people. His message to America should be repudiated from the AmFest stage. Responses such as this one from apparently a writer in the Christian Post, not the Bee and Federalist, said, is Charlie Kirk schizophrenic? And towards the end of it, he said, at this rate, the entire movement will be nothing more than a rancid swamp of neo-Nazi urine, and Kirk will be the one who handed them the hose. Beth Mandel said, today we learned Charlie Kirk is that asshole who yells at Trader Joe's employees about not wearing a mask. Can't say I'm shocked, to be honest. Insurrection Barbie said, I'm so disappointed in Charlie Kirk. I don't care what anyone thinks about it, that's my opinion, but it's about more than the politics. As a Christian, I'm disappointed, and that sucks. Everyone's masks are fully off. Real John Dutton said, Charlie loves Qatar first Tucker. James Lindsay said, it's a tragic and diabolical irony that it appears of all things that Turning Point USA might well end up being used to launch the revolution against President Trump, and after all it has done for our president, our country, and our cause. May God open the eyes of Charlie Kirk. He also said, moms calling in to Charlie Kirk asking him why their sons are turning Nazi sympathetic, wants to know which influencers. So all of these Zionist pro-Israel sycophants were freaking out at Charlie Kirk over the last few months about his shift in strategy compared to them. Charlie liked Tucker Carlson. Most of them hate Tucker Carlson. Charlie didn't want war with Iran. Most of them do want war with Iran. Charlie Kirk thought self-awareness needed to be part of the strategy of fighting anti-Semitism. People like Mark Levin thought that Charlie Kirk was wrong and seemed to support these anti-Semitism bills that Charlie said were un-American. So if you want to be honest about Charlie Kirk's legacy, I find it absolutely vile and despicable that the same people who were pressuring and upset at Charlie Kirk months ago are now trying to act, now that he's not alive to talk for himself, they're trying to pretend like Charlie was just like us. I mean, there's no proof that he was changing. The proof is on your feeds.
So this one is from Sunday, April 13th at 8:01 p.m. He texted me, listen to you on Rogan. Now, this is like a day or two after the Douglas Murray debate. So I debated Douglas Murray on the Joe Rogan experience, and it was a big show. At the time, it was a big show. I guess Candace Owens changed the definition of big show at this point. In hindsight, a teeny little show. So this was a Charlie Kirk, unprompted, texted me about the Douglas Murray debate. Now, just like kind of keeping in mind, and I'll fully disclaim here, Charlie Kirk's a really nice guy. You could chalk a lot of this up to him being nice. But the Douglas Murray debate with me, like I'm not overstating it. This was like a big thing. This may have been the biggest high profile debate on Israel. And this is what Charlie Kirk wrote to me Sunday, April 13th at 8:01 p.m. Listen to you on Rogan. You did well, despite me being more on the pro-Israel side. Very little I disagree with what you said. One point, when Douglas was going on about you using arguments from authority, it's a ridiculous claim. You were using original source quotes to prove their motives, all capital and motives, not their analysis of geopolitics, etc. Two totally different things. You were right on that point 100%. Keep up the good work. Hope to cross paths at some point soon. I'm sorry, hope to cross paths at some point. And I wrote back, thanks, Charlie. I really appreciate that. Now, again, I'm not saying anyone should make any more of this than there is there, but like, this is Charlie Kirk. He told me privately that there was very little that he disagreed with. And if you go listen to what I said on that show, I was going pretty hard. And so I will say, like, Candace calling on me to like release what I know. That is one. And I think that's not completely insignificant. Like, I think that does at least demonstrate that this wasn't Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro was not sending me this text message. Let's just say that.
And I'm not saying he was going to make a complete U-turn or anything, but Charlie was questioning Epstein.
That Epstein, with his little friend Ghislaine and Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, who was obviously a spy of the Israeli intelligence agencies, that there was something else going on here. Do you think there's any intel community involvement in this?
I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I am convinced, based on my own sources and my own reporting on this story, he wasn't one of ours.
So he wasn't American, which leads basically three options: MI6, Saudi, or Mossad.
Yep.
Which one would you choose?
I guess Mossad, given his connection to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Epstein was not some sort of whiz kid hedge fund manager. Epstein was playing a part. Epstein was a LARPer. Epstein was cast for a specific role, and he played it really well. The sweatpants and the Harvard jacket, the kind of disheveled hair, looking as if he was so smart and above the clouds that he was doing advanced mathematic equations on the back of napkins. But if you actually go into some of the videos of people that met with Epstein at the time, they said he was awfully unimpressive when it came to finance and markets and economics. So what does that mean?
Well, I mean, it's possible that that's the reason everything's getting buried, that there is some treasure trove, and it's getting buried because...
How many people here believe that? Raise your hand. Okay, I'd say about half the hands think that it's being buried because of an Israeli thing.
It could be. I really don't know.
And I have no evidence to suggest that.
No, me neither. I did think it was very odd how, look, half of you raised your hands because you've heard that theory, you've heard it debated, you have questions, but the one time Pam Bondi was asked a question about this at the cabinet meeting on Monday, she was like, and as for whether he was an agent, that I don't know. I haven't looked into that. I'll get back to you. You haven't looked into it? What do you mean? So that was kind of a fishy answer.
And Megan, remember Alexander Acosta in 2007, he said he was told to treat Epstein carefully because he was an intel asset. That was one of Trump's cabinet secretaries who was literally a U.S. attorney 3 hours from here in Florida. He said that himself.
Well, and let me tell you the consequences of that. His subpoena, his search warrant on Jeffrey Epstein's residence was very narrow. It was not the kind of like, let's get everything. Let's see everything inside this guy's, dressers and so on. It was very, very narrowly tailored. And to this day, that's what the FBI is stuck with. So it really is possible that Dan and Cash got in there and, in like a Geraldo and Al Capone's vault situation, opened it up and we're like, oh my gosh, there's nothing in here. Like, we did not find the magic documents or photos or evidence of anything. And why not? I don't know we'll ever know why not. I'm not sure we'll ever know, but...
Nothing new that if you're in the intel agencies, you want to try and get as much blackmail on powerful people as possible. Easy, not hard. And this is no longer just speculation. First of all, the evidence that shows that Epstein was a creation of either Mossad, Israeli intelligence, American intelligence, Saudi intelligence, or maybe he was just a hired gun. Maybe he was just the guy that countries would go to and park a couple $100 million and say, hey, can you get one of the members of the royal family with a 13-year-old so we can get them to do what we want to do? Members of Congress are actively being blackmailed. The Epstein playbook is being used on a daily basis. Jeffrey Epstein was not a financier. He was not a hedge fund manager. Jeffrey Epstein was a key player in a multi-decade blackmail operation against the most powerful people on the planet.
Charlie did have questions about October 7th, which is a huge, huge no-no on the pro-Israel Zionist crowd.
I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that is an IDF soldier, right? The whole country is surveilled. And so let me just kind of go through this. We don't talk about Israeli politics very often, and most Americans don't know this. The last 9 months, Israel was on the brink of civil war. It's not an exaggeration. This judicial stuff, there were hundreds of thousands of Israelis taking to the streets because Bibi Netanyahu was basically redefining the Israeli constitution. That's not an exaggeration, right? He said the judicial branch has too much power. There were protests planned this week against Netanyahu, where they anticipated tens of thousands of people to take to the streets. That's all gone, Patrick. Netanyahu now has an emergency government and a mandate to lead. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here. But I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate non-conspiracy question. The whole country is the IDF. The whole country is. Yeah. And you're trying to tell me that they're going to concerts and kibbutzes and schools?
Charlie was frustrated that pro-Israel Zionist sycophants and donors were calling him an anti-Semite.
I got texts about you, Megan, saying, why is Megan doing the bidding of Hamas? I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite.
Charlie didn't seem to believe in hate speech and hate speech laws, even though Trump is trying to claim, well, maybe he would think differently now.
Charlie said, that there was no such thing as hate speech. He obviously, no one anticipated what happened to Charlie, but you have always been.
And when Pam Bondi went on her little hate speech rant after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, most people never saw the full clip in which she started talking about anti-Semitism.
These universities are complicit in allowing conservatives to be harassed on campus. And what happens when you allow a university to harass conservatives and don't expel or don't take an action is what happened last week.
It is, and on a broader level, the anti-Semitism, what's been happening at college campuses around this country is disgusting, it's despicable, and we've been fighting that. We've been fighting these universities left and right, and we're not going to stop. There's free speech, and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, in our society.
Do you see more law enforcement going after these groups who are using hate speech and putting cuffs on people so we show them that some action is better than no action?
We will absolutely target you, go after you, if you are targeting anyone with hate speech, anything, and that's across the aisle.
While for years Charlie seemed to ignore these anti-Semitism hate speech rules and laws, towards the end of his life, he started noticing them, just like I showed you earlier, and he disagreed with them from an American perspective. As somebody who, just to be honest, wasn't the biggest fan of Charlie most of his career, I also saw the change in Charlie because from 2019 until like 2022 or 2023, my frustration with Charlie Kirk is that I felt like he didn't see these hate speech laws and he was being extremely inconsistent in his pro-America views when it came to the topic of Israel. This year, platforming Tucker, allowing him to go off at Turning Point like this, and starting to talk about these hate speech laws, I started to have more and more respect for Charlie Kirk and really appreciate him, while a lot of the pro-Israel sycophants started disliking or disagreeing with what he was doing. And here's the thing. Earlier in Charlie's career, when I felt like he wasn't being consistent with his views, when he wouldn't talk about the hate speech laws, when I listen to people say Charlie was out there doing Hasbara for Israel, even though he didn't want to, it makes me wonder what that means.
Little do they know, half the time he's on college campuses, all he's doing is Hasbara and defending Israel, and he doesn't even want to be. He doesn't even know the issues that well, but he's forced to.
Once again, why would Charlie have to say things he didn't believe or do things that he didn't want to do? I don't understand why. Was there pressure? Was it donors? Is it because when you take money, you have to do certain things to get that money? Was he just a really loyal friend of Israel that he'd do things that he didn't want to do for them? I don't know. I have no idea. But what I do know is that in his final month or two, I started seeing his soul pouring out of him as an American citizen, wondering why so many people in his inner circle were turning against him for simply either questioning Israel or questioning the tactics to fight anti-Semitism. Charlie was a loyal friend of Israel. Charlie loved Israel. Charlie worked harder than anybody I know in the right-wing movement to get people to support Israel. He was pro-Israel, and I'll never pretend like he wasn't. But Charlie found out what I found out in 2019. It doesn't matter how nice, kind, honest, or pro-Israel you are, you will be smeared as an anti-Semite if you don't do 100% of everything that certain people want you to do. In 2019, I noticed that Trump and DeSantis were passing anti-Semitism legislation. I read it. I became familiar with the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which is an international definition of anti-Semitism created in the 2010s, and it was being passed and is being passed into legislation all over the world and America. I disagreed with it from a First Amendment standpoint, and all my friends in conservative media started texting me saying, hey, they're calling you far right. They're calling you an anti-Semite. I pretty much got soft blacklisted from the conservative movement for simply talking about these anti-Semitism hate speech rules. I felt it was un-American, but nobody seemed to care. I got dropped like a hot potato. And a lot of people distanced themselves from me because they didn't want to get called an anti-Semite or lose their opportunity or job. I know how crazy the pressure is, and it's completely unfair. Getting into politics and becoming a conservative-leaning podcaster or journalist, I had a pro-Israel bias, yet I still was just routinely smeared as an anti-Semite over and over and over and over and over again. And Charlie Kirk didn't really start talking about that stuff until a year or two ago, and as soon as he did, he got called an anti-Semite, enemy, Hamas. I mean, it's really creepy stuff. Charlie is like the most pro-Israel person you could ever meet that's not Jewish or Israeli himself. Yet in his final months, he was crying out for help. And a lot of the pro-Israel Zionist crowd acts like, well, now let's get Tucker off the stage. Well, now let's go after the anti-Semites. Let's fight anti-Semitism. Charlie didn't want to fight it that way. You don't have to listen to Charlie. You don't have to believe him. You don't have to, now that he's passed, become him. But just be honest about who he was. He wasn't like me, and he wasn't like you. Yes, he was pro-Israel, but he was defying most of the pro-Israel crowd in politics and media, and it really, really bothered him how he was being treated. Recently, Dennis Prager came to his defense, but even coming in his defense, kind of gave a backhanded diss to Charlie and said,
if you think Megyn Kelly and Charlie Kirk have been anti-Semitic, you're out of your mind. Charitably, you're paranoid. And Jews have a right to some degree of paranoia, given what's happened to us. But I don't excuse it. These have been two of the most outspoken pro-Israel voices. They are allowed to differ with the Israeli government. I would only say to Megan and Charlie, in fact, I had every desire to call Charlie to talk to him about this. You can't say the Jews anything. George Soros is a Jew, and Benjamin Netanyahu is a Jew.
That's what you wanted to say to Charlie? Why would you need to say that to Charlie? Because Charlie never said that.
In fact, I had every desire to call Charlie to talk to him about this. You can't say the Jews anything.
Here's what Charlie said.
Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. Now, I don't like generalizations. Not every Jewish person believes that. But it is true, the Anti-Defamation League was part and parcel with Black Lives Matter. It is true that some of the largest financiers of left-wing anti-white causes have been Jewish Americans. They went all in on woke, and it wasn't just ADL. It was some of the top Jewish organizations in the country that have done that. In fact, we have seen this with the recent retreat of Jewish donations that are no longer going to be administered to colleges, right? Mark Rowan, Leon Kopperman. Can we get that full list? It's very powerful. The part of the, so that's totally true. And by the way, Tucker Carlson reinforces this. So I'm going to it was quite a day on the internet. Tucker Carlson was interviewing Candace Owens. We have Candace Owens coming up next hour. And Tucker Carlson mentions that Jewish Americans have primarily been financing cultural Marxist ideas. We said this, by the way, last week, and people came after us. We were on top of it. We actually said it in a different way. We said, I'm glad that Jewish Americans are reconsidering their financing of cultural Marxism. And people misunderstood it intentionally and slandered us as being anti-Semites. But listen to this. Tucker Carlson is completely correct by saying this, that the philosophical foundation of anti-whiteness has been largely financed by Jewish donors in the country.
And here's what Dennis Prager once said.
Every ism except Nazism was founded and or led disproportionately by Jews. You name it. Marxism, humanism, socialism, environmentalism, feminism, Jews.
Charlie was always careful about how he worded. He never said it's everybody. He just said some people, and it's more than I'd like to admit. It's unfortunately, the stakeholders and the institutions are turning against me. That's what Charlie said in his final month or two.
Any deviation whatsoever, such as hosting a focus group, right, Megan, with a bunch of our students that went viral, having Dave Smith or Tucker at my event, it is all of a sudden, oh, Charlie is he's no longer with us and all that. I said, wait a second, what do you mean? What does with us mean exactly, right? I'm an American, okay? Like, I represent this country, and I don't even understand that paradigm. But, Megan, I think you would agree with this. I want to make sure we really zero in on this. Personality types like you, myself, and Tucker, the more that you guys privately and publicly call our character into question, which is not isolated, right? Megan, it would be one thing if it was one text or two texts. It is dozens of texts.
Yes.
Then we start to say, hold the boat here. And to be fair, some of my really good Jewish friends are like, that's not all of us, it's all, but these are leaders too, though, right? These are stakeholders, right? And so, look, I'm afraid because, again, I want civilization to win. When the hostile reaction is that now Megan and Charlie are enemies,
right?
Boy, I'll tell you, like, you're not gonna, I won't say lose, but you will weaken and just basically deflate two of your strongest advocates if that continues.
Right. And to me, I laugh because it's like, I've been bullied by the best of them.
And now Ben Shapiro has this kid on his show, and it's being promoted to us as the next generation of kids that are going to be like Charlie Kirk. And I don't even need to do a deep dive on this guy, nor do I want to. I'm sure a lot of people on the internet are because he's getting all this attention. But out of respect, I won't. I don't need to. I'm just going to look at this clip after Charlie Kirk was killed, in which he came onto the Fox News clip smiling.
That's incredible. and Charlie Kirk appears on your podcast. Tell me about the role he played for you as a mentor.
Yeah, again, it's somebody that didn't have to do that. He was on Fox News every other hour that year. He didn't have to make time for me as an 11-year-old with this upcoming podcast in the 4th grade to come on and join me, but he did. And not only was it a one-time thing, I've interviewed hundreds of people that I've never talked to again. He stayed a mentor, and he texted me up until this week when I was on another Fox show congratulating me. Like, he didn't have to do that. He could have viewed me as competition. He could have said, oh, I'm not going to give this kid time.
I didn't know Charlie Kirk. I never met Charlie Kirk. I mean, one time, but he barely knew who I was, and it was like 7-8 years ago, so I wouldn't even consider it like a real meeting. And like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan of Charlie, yet when he was assassinated, I was so shook I couldn't do my live stream that day. The next day I did a live stream, and it was a very somber live stream. I was upset. It was sad. It was weird. The vibe was very dark because of what happened to Charlie. As somebody that didn't even know him, I couldn't imagine doing a news hit or doing a podcast the day Charlie died, let alone being able to smile at the intro of my segment. I don't need to know anything else about this kid. That's nuts. And anybody that doesn't think that that's a little weird is weird to me. Like, I could not bring myself to smile on the news the day that Charlie Kirk died, let alone even do a segment. It's ridiculous. And just like Pam Bondi is talking about anti-Semitism, hate speech, Trump is saying, well, maybe Charlie would feel differently now. Kash Patel listened to Jared Moskowitz, and Kash Patel said he would work with him on Section 230.
No, there are extremes on the left, and there are extremes on the right. And we collectively should tackle that. But to come here and just look at us and say we all support what's going on in the extremes is why we can't solve anything in this building. Director, let me say first, thank you for being here, and my condolences on the loss of your friend. And I'm happy to hear that you want to do more on the social media platforms. Okay, it's crazy what's going on the social media platforms. There are so many conspiracy theories on what's going on with Charlie Kirk. Israel assassinated him, right? There are conspiracy theories about your personal social life all day. It is totally rampant. Big names on the right, Candace Owens, right? Talking about how what's been released as far as the dialogue between the perpetrator and his roommate is manufactured by the FBI, manufactured by the administration. It is totally rampant, allowing foreign governments to just perpetrate these platforms, all of these bots, all of the time to weaponize Americans. You see what's going on here? This is a byproduct of all of that. What's going on in the streets is a byproduct of all of that. What's happening is you see people celebrate Luigi Mangione is a byproduct of all of that. And so if we want to do something, then we should talk about Section 230. We should talk about how we're going to make sure that we don't let foreign governments poison our children's mind. And so I will work with you on that, Director.
I'll work with you on 230 any day.
No problem.
Let me know what you think in the comment section. Once again, the point of this video, I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it useful. There's a huge battle right now over Charlie Kirk's legacy and who he was. He wasn't me. I'm not going to pretend like he was. But some of the pro-Israel Zionist crowd that was upset with Charlie over the last few months, that was not like Charlie, that didn't see things like him, are acting like there's no proof for all the things Charlie was saying in his final months. There is proof. Some of it's on your Twitter timeline. Others are in podcasts and videos that Charlie made. And if you really want to respect Charlie and his vision for Turning Point, you wouldn't be begging Turning Point to deplatform Tucker Carlson when Charlie Kirk routinely said not only would he not back away from Tucker Carlson, but he was willing to double down because he didn't want to be bullied and pressured by people on his side. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel if you think I do a good job. Share this video with a friend if you'd like. God bless you. Have a beautiful week. Thanks for watching. Real quick, folks, limited edition. I have white God Bless hats, black God is Great hats, and black God Bless hats on my dreamrare.com shop. Everything is made in the USA, sourced in the USA, materials from the USA. I worked really hard to keep it all in the United States. If you want one of these hats, they're going to sell soon, and the pre-order's out now. Go to dreamrare.com, grab yourself a hat before it's too late, and if you've been asking me for a while, when are you getting hats back in stock? Here's your opportunity. Dreamrare.com. Check it out, folks. Appreciate you.